Communications Officer Kale sat hunched over his monitoring station, watching the endless stream of data from the deep space arrays surrounding Kepler-4 for 2b for 3 months straight. He had been pulling double shifts, desperately scanning for any sign of help while the Vrak raiders slowly tore their mining colony apart. The alien attackers had been relentless, their plasma cannons hammering the colony's defensive shields day and night until the protective barriers flickered like dying stars. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but Kale barely noticed. His people were dying, and the Galactic Council had made it clear that their remote mining operation was expendable. Too far from civilization, they said. Too dangerous to send a rescue fleet, they claimed. The Zelari colonists were on their own against an enemy that showed no mercy. That's when his equipment started screaming. Every alarm on his console lit up at once, creating a symphony of electronic chaos that made his antennae twitch with shock. The signal was coming from impossible coordinates, a region of space that every civilized being knew was nothing but empty void and death. Solthry, the legendary world that existed only in the darkest corners of spacer mythology. Sir, you need to see this right now, Kale shouted across the communications center, his voice cracking with disbelief. I'm picking up a transmission from the dead zone. Colony Director Viran rushed over, his 4 eyes wide with exhaustion and desperation. For weeks, he had watched his people suffer under the Vrak bombardment, knowing that each passing day brought them closer to total annihilation. The colony's population had dropped from 8,000 to barely 3,000 survivors, most of them hiding in the deepest mining tunnels where the plasma fire couldn't reach them. Show me what you found, Viran commanded, leaning over Kale's shoulder to study the impossible data. Streaming across the screens, the transmission was unlike anything in their databases. It contained mathematical sequences that proved beyond doubt the existence of intelligent life, but the origin point made no sense. Solthry was the stuff of nightmares. A world where gravity was so crushing it would snap Zelari bones like twigs, where radiation levels could cook flesh in minutes, and where the very atmosphere was a toxic mixture that would burn through their respiratory systems. According to every scientific survey ever conducted, nothing could survive on that hellish rock. Yet here was proof that not only did life exist there, but it had developed technology advanced enough for interstellar communication. The legends speak of Solthry as a place where death itself was born, Viran whispered, his voice trembling. They say it's a world so hostile that even the planet tries to kill everything living on its surface. Volcanic eruptions that last for years, storms that could tear apart starships, and creatures so savage they hunt each other for sport. Kale's hands shook as he prepared the response beacon, breaking every protocol in the Galactic Council's communication handbook. He began encoding their desperate situation into the transmission, their exact coordinates, the number of survivors, the strength of the Vrak attack fleet, and most importantly, a plea for help from beings that might not even be real. Unknown intelligence of Solthry, we are under attack, he transmitted into the void. Our defenses fail. Our people die. If you receive this message, we are the Zelari of Kepler-4 for to be. We have nowhere else to turn. The hours that followed felt like centuries. Every minute brought fresh reports of Vrak advances, their ground troops pushing deeper into the colony's outer sectors. Families huddled in the mining shafts, children crying as the sound of plasma fire echoed through the tunnels above their heads. Then, just as hope seemed completely lost, Kale's equipment came alive again. The response was transmitted in broken, heavily accented Zelari script, as if the sender had learned their language from ancient textbooks, rather than natural conversation. But the message was clear enough to send shockwaves through the entire colony. Message received. Zelari people, help is coming to your world. Earth stands with you. The word Earth sent murmurs of disbelief rippling through the communications center. According to galactic mythology, Earth was the ancient name for Sol 3, the death world that had haunted spacer legends for generations. But myths didn't send radio transmissions, and fairy tales didn't promise military assistance. Throughout the colony, survivors emerged from their hiding places to hear the impossible news. The death world was real, its inhabitants were intelligent, and something was coming to help them fight the Vrak raiders. For the first time in months, the Zelari dared to hope that they might actually survive. Admiral Jake Morrison had been dreaming about this moment his entire career, though he never imagined it would start with a desperate cry for help from the other side of the galaxy. The command center of U.S. Retribution buzzed with controlled chaos as humanity's top military minds worked around the clock to decode their first genuine alien transmission. After decades of scanning empty space and listening to cosmic silence, they finally had proof that Earth wasn't alone in the universe. The alien message had been broadcasting for nearly 18 hours straight, growing weaker with each repetition, as if the senders were running out of power. Morrison could hear the desperation in their broken English, even though the words came from vocal cords that had never evolved to speak human languages. These creatures called themselves Zelari, and they were dying while begging for help from a species they thought was mythical. "Admiral, we've finished our preliminary analysis of the Zelari physiology," announced Dr. Lisa Hayes, the expedition's chief xenobiologist. She had been working non-stop since the transmission arrived, her team dissecting every piece of biological data hidden within the alien distress call. These beings are silicon-based lifeforms, with a completely different biochemistry than anything on Earth. Their world has an atmosphere we could breathe without any equipment, but if they visited our planet, they'd be dead within minutes. Morrison studied the holographic displays showing alien anatomy that looked more like living crystal formations than anything resembling Earth biology. The Zelari appeared fragile by human standards, their bodies adapted for low gravity and gentle atmospheric conditions. They had never known the brutal evolutionary pressure that had shaped humanity over millions of years. "What about their attackers?" Morrison asked, turning to Commander Mike Torres, who had spent the last day analyzing intercepted Vrak military communications. Torres highlighted tactical information on the main screen, showing enemy ship configurations and weapon systems that seemed primitive compared to human military technology. "The Vrak Empire has been expanding through this galactic sector for about 50 years, sir. They use standard plasma-based energy weapons and defensive shields that rely on electromagnetic fields. Honestly, it's nothing more advanced than what we were building back in the early 2100s. The irony wasn't lost on Morrison. Here were two alien civilizations fighting with technology that humanity had already surpassed. Yet they considered Earth a death world, where no intelligent life could possibly exist. They had no idea that their mythical death world had spent the last century building starships specifically designed to survive the harshest conditions imaginable. "Sir, we're receiving additional intelligence from deep space monitoring stations," reported Lieutenant Colonel Beth Rodriguez from her position at the communications array. "It appears the Vrak have been systematically wiping out smaller colonies throughout this region. The Zelari aren't their first victims, and they won't be their last unless someone stops them." Morrison walked to the massive viewport overlooking Earth's orbital shipyards, where the Terra defense fleet floated in perfect formation like sleeping giants waiting to be awakened. 47 vessels, each one built to withstand solar radiation, asteroid impacts, and the crushing gravitational forces of gas giant exploration. Ships with hulls forged from materials tested in Earth's deepest ocean trenches and highest mountain peaks. "Admiral, there's something else you need to know," Dr. Hayes continued, her voice taking on an excited tone. "According to their biological data, most galactic civilizations consider our normal living conditions to be absolutely lethal. The atmospheric pressure we breathe every day would crush their organs. The gravity that lets us walk around normally would snap their bones. Even our drinking water contains mineral concentrations that would poison their systems." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had always wondered why the galaxy seemed so empty, why their radio telescopes had never detected signs of advanced civilization despite decades of searching. Now they understood. Every other intelligent species in the galaxy had evolved on worlds so gentle that Earth's normal conditions seemed like a vision of hell itself. They think we're monsters, Morrison realized, a grim smile crossing her face. They've been telling stories about the mythical death world where impossible creatures lived in conditions that would kill anything else in the universe. Commander Torres laughed, the sound echoing through the command center. Wait until they see what those impossible creatures can do when someone threatens innocent people. Morrison turned back to her crew, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Humanity's first contact with alien civilization wouldn't be a peaceful diplomatic meeting or a scientific exchange. It would be a rescue mission, with human warships charging across interstellar space to save a species that had only heard of Earth in their darkest nightmares. Signal all ship commanders, she ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had trained her entire life for this moment. Humanity's first interstellar deployment is a rescue mission. We're going to show the galaxy what Deathworld evolution produces when you threaten innocent lives. The Terra Defense Fleet powered up their faster-than-light drives, preparing to introduce humanity to the galaxy in the most human way possible, by arriving just in time to save the day. The Terra Defense Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system like a pack of wolves emerging from a winter storm. 47 human warships materialized in perfect formation, their dark hulls gleaming with the dull shine of armor plating that had been tested in the most extreme conditions Earth could provide. For the first time in galactic history, the mythical Deathworld had sent its children to war. Captain Tom Bradley stood on the bridge of his assault cruiser Vengeance, watching the tactical displays update with enemy positions. The Vrak siege fleet had been hammering the Zelari colony for months, their plasma cannons systematically destroying everything the peaceful miners had built over decades of hard work. Refugee ships drifted helplessly in space, their engines damaged and life support systems failing while alien raiders picked them off one by one. Communications open a channel to the Vrak fleet, Bradley ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. This would be humanity's first words to a hostile alien species, and he wanted to make them count. The bridge crew had spent weeks learning basic Zelari phrases from the distress transmissions, knowing that most galactic civilizations used it as a common language for interstellar communication. Bradley's accent was terrible, his pronunciation clumsy, but the message came through crystal clear as it echoed across the void. Earth fleet arriving. Surrender immediately, or be destroyed. The response came almost instantly from the Vrak command ship, a massive vessel bristling with energy weapons and protective shields. Warlord Grix, the alien commander who had been terrorizing this sector for years, appeared on the communication screen with his reptilian features twisted in amusement. His laughter sounded like grinding metal as he dismissed the human threat. Deathworld myths and spacer fairy tales. Grix snarled, his translator making his words sound even more menacing. Nothing lives on Sol 3 except radiation and death. Fire all batteries and vaporize these pretenders. The Vrak siege fleet turned their weapons toward the human ships, plasma cannons charging with deadly energy that had already reduced dozens of Zelari vessels to scattered debris. Brilliant streams of superheated matter lanced across space, striking human hulls with enough force to melt through conventional armor like a blowtorch through paper. But the Terra Defense Fleet wasn't built with conventional materials. Damage report, Bradley called out as his ship shuddered under the alien bombardment. Sir, their plasma cannons are heating our outer hull plating, but penetration is 0, reported Chief Engineer Randy Foster from his station deep within the ship's armored core. The enemy weapons are designed for standard galactic alloys. Our armor was forged to survive solar flares and asteroid impacts. This is barely warming us up. Across the human fleet, similar reports came flooding in. The Vrak weapons, so devastating against other galactic civilizations, were completely ineffective against ships built to survive Earth's hostile environment. Hulls that had been tested in the crushing depths of ocean trenches and the radioactive hell of reactor cores simply absorbed the plasma fire like rain on a mountainside. "Admiral Morrison, this is Captain Bradley," he reported to the fleet commander. "Enemy weapons are ineffective against our armor. Requesting permission to show them what real weapons look like." "Permission granted," came Morrison's grim response. "Let them learn why Earth builds kinetic weapons." The human fleet opened fire with weapons that most galactic civilizations had abandoned thousands of years ago. Railguns accelerated solid metal slugs to velocities that turned simple iron into devastating projectiles, while mass drivers hurled chunks of dense matter at speeds that would have been impossible without Earth's advanced magnetic field technology. The Vrak energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and laser fire, were completely useless against solid projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. The kinetic slugs punched through their defensive barriers like bullets through tissue paper, tearing massive holes in alien hull plating that had never been designed to withstand physical impacts. "Sir, the Vrak flagship is requesting boarding. Protocols," reported Communications Officer Kelly Thompson from her station. "They want to surrender, but they're asking us to follow some kind of galactic warfare convention." Marine Colonel Dave Williams, monitoring the tactical situation from the troopship Liberty, stepped forward with a predatory grin. His Marines had been training for zero-gravity combat in conditions that would kill most alien species. Their bodies conditioned by Earth's crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere. "Tell them we don't know their conventions," Williams said into his communicator. "We're coming aboard whether they like it or not." The human boarding action was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Marines who had trained in Earth's deepest caves and highest mountains moved through the alien ship's corridors like unstoppable forces of nature. The Vrak warriors, adapted for low-gravity combat and gentle atmospheric conditions, found themselves facing soldiers who treated their ship's environmental hazards like minor inconveniences. "Colonel Williams, this is bizarre," reported Sergeant Tony Garcia as his squad secured the enemy engineering section. "The Vrak keep backing away from us, like we're walking disasters. They're calling us void demons and impossible creatures in their own language." Williams laughed as he advanced toward the enemy bridge. His combat armor, barely registering the alien ship's environmental systems that would have been lethal to most galactic species. Can you blame them? We're from a world they think is hell itself, and we just proved we can shrug off their best weapons. Within hours, the entire Vrak siege fleet had surrendered or been destroyed. The aliens who had spent months terrorizing innocent Zelari colonists found themselves completely outmatched by creatures from their darkest nightmares. Admiral Morrison's voice crackled across the fleet communications as the last enemy ship powered down its weapons. "All vessels, secure the area and prepare for first contact with our Zelari friends. Let's show them that the Deathworld myths have a protective side." Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most human way possible, by arriving just in time to save the innocent and punish the guilty. 3 weeks after the Vrak siege was broken, Ambassador Kate Johnson found herself standing in the most important diplomatic building in the known galaxy. The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime had hosted thousands of first contact ceremonies over the centuries, but never one quite like this. The massive chamber was designed to accommodate hundreds of different alien species, with specialized environmental controls for beings who breathed methane, required high radiation, or needed crushing atmospheric pressure to survive. Johnson stood at the center podium wearing nothing more than a standard Earth diplomatic uniform, breathing the chamber's standard atmosphere like it was a pleasant spring day. Around her, representatives from dozens of galactic civilizations huddled behind protective barriers, their environmental suits beeping with radiation warnings and atmospheric alerts that made no sense to anyone who had grown up on Earth. Honorable delegates of the Galactic Council, Johnson began, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. Humanity wishes to formally introduce itself to galactic civilization and request membership in your alliance. She paused to take a sip from her travel mug, a simple gesture that caused immediate panic among the assembled aliens. Emergency alarms started blaring as their sensors detected the chemical composition of her drink, and several delegates actually fled the chamber in terror when they realized she was casually consuming a liquid that their computers classified as a universal solvent. Council Speaker Vex, a tall crystalline being from the Andorian system, trembled behind his reinforced protective barrier as he struggled to process what he was witnessing. His species had evolved on a world with gentle breezes and mineral springs, where the harshest weather was a light rain shower and the most dangerous predator was roughly equivalent to Earth's butterflies. Ambassador Johnson, Vex managed, his voice shaking with disbelief. Our sensors are indicating that the liquid you are consuming contains compounds that would dissolve the organic matter of most known life forms. Are you, are you drinking acid? Johnson glanced down at her coffee mug with amusement, then looked back at the terrified alien representatives. It's just coffee. We drink it every morning to help us wake up. Some humans drink 3 or 4 cups a day. The revelation that humans regularly consumed what most galactic species considered industrial-grade solvent sent waves of shock through the assembly. Johnson took another casual sip, causing the Zalari delegate to faint and the Vrak representative to hide behind his chair. Your species claims to have evolved on Salthri, Vex continued, consulting his species' ancient records. With growing horror, our astronomical surveys indicate that your homeworld experiences surface temperatures that range from well below freezing to hot enough to boil water. The atmospheric pressure would crush most beings, and the radiation levels are sufficient to sterilize entire star systems. Johnson nodded thoughtfully, as if they were discussing something as mundane as the weather. Earth does have its challenges. We get hurricanes that can level cities, earthquakes that split continents, and volcanic eruptions that block out the sun for months at a time. The winters can drop to temperatures that would freeze most liquids solid, and the summers can get hot enough to kill you from heat stroke if you're not careful. The alien delegates stared at her in growing horror as she described conditions that sounded like a tour of the galaxy's most notorious death traps. But that's just Tuesday on Earth, Johnson continued with a smile. We've learned to adapt. When you evolve on a world that's constantly trying to kill you, everywhere else in the galaxy seems pretty comfortable by comparison. Dr. Vex, the Council's chief xenobiologist, studied his readings with growing amazement. Ambassador, our scans indicate that your bone density is approximately 3 times greater than any known life form. Your muscle mass suggests adaptation to gravitational forces that would be crushing to most species, and your cellular structure appears designed to resist radiation levels that we use for industrial applications. Earth's gravity is a bit heavier than most worlds, Johnson admitted, and we do get a fair amount of cosmic radiation, thanks to our active magnetic field, but it keeps us in shape. The implications were staggering. Humans weren't just another intelligent species that had somehow survived on a hostile world. They were the apex predators of a planet that most galactic civilizations would classify as a weapon of mass destruction. Every aspect of human biology had been forged in conditions that would kill other life forms in minutes. There's something else you should know, Johnson continued, her tone becoming more serious. Earth isn't just home to humans. We share our world with millions of other species, many of which you would probably consider impossible. We have creatures that breathe fire, animals that generate their own electricity, and predators that can tear through steel with their bare claws. The Galactic Council chamber fell completely silent as the delegates tried to process this information. A world so hostile that its dominant species considered it normal, populated by creatures that sounded like living weapons. But here's the thing about humans, Johnson said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute sincerity. We protect those who can't protect themselves. We've seen what the Vrak Empire was doing to peaceful colonies, and we won't stand for it. Earth is offering its protection to any species that needs help defending themselves. The announcement sent shockwaves throughout galactic civilization. The mythical Deathworld wasn't just real, its inhabitants were offering to serve as the galaxy's guardians. Creatures who considered radiation storms a minor inconvenience and drank acid for breakfast were volunteering to fight the galaxy's bullies. Within hours, requests for Earth's protection were flooding in from dozens of worlds. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, not through conquest or colonization, but through an open invitation from species who finally understood that the monsters from the Deathworld were on their side. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after humanity announced its presence to the galaxy, Colonel Ryan Martinez stood on the observation deck of Outpost Liberty, watching human construction crews work in conditions that would require full hazmat suits for any other species. The former Vrak territories had been transformed into a network of human military bases, each one built to Earth standards that made most aliens wonder how anything could survive in such harsh pace environments. The outpost itself was a marvel of human engineering, constructed directly on the surface of a high-radiation moon that orbited a gas giant with crushing gravitational fields. While alien visitors needed specialized environmental suits just to survive a few minutes on the surface, human personnel walked around in standard uniforms, treating the deadly radiation like a gentle summer breeze. "Colonel, you need to see this," called Sergeant Julie Thompson from her monitoring station. She had been tracking routine patrol routes when her long-range sensors picked up something that made her blood run cold. "We're getting massive contacts on the edge of sensor range. Unknown ships, thousands of them, approaching from outside our galaxy." Martinez studied the sensor readings with growing concern. The approaching fleet was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Their ships built with technology that seemed organic rather than mechanical. Whatever was coming had traveled between galaxies, suggesting capabilities far beyond anything the local civilizations possessed. "Get me Admiral Morrison immediately," Martinez ordered, "and send word to Earth Command. We might have a problem that's bigger than the Vrak Empire." The emergency alert reached Admiral Morrison aboard her flagship, the massive battle cruiser, Terra's Shield, which had become the command center for the combined Galactic Defense Force. Over the past 6 months, she had transformed humanity's rescue mission into a full-scale military alliance, with human officers working alongside alien counterparts from dozens of different species. The bridge of her ship was a testament to this new cooperation. Zelari engineers worked at specialized workstations designed for their crystalline physiology, while human technicians handled the heavy equipment that would have been impossible for their more fragile allies to operate. The combination of human durability and alien technical expertise had created weapon systems that defied every known law of galactic warfare. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from our outer sensor networks," reported Commander Beth Rodriguez. "The approaching fleet appears to be the Hive Mind, an ancient force that our alien allies describe as the galaxy's ultimate nightmare." Morrison had heard the stories during diplomatic meetings with the Galactic Council. The Hive Mind was a collective intelligence that had been consuming entire civilizations for millions of years, traveling between galaxies to feed on any life forms they encountered. They had destroyed countless advanced species, leaving nothing behind but empty worlds and scattered debris. "Sir, the Hive Mind scouts are broadcasting on all frequencies," announced Communications Officer Tony Garcia. "They're demanding immediate surrender from all intelligent species in this galaxy. According to their message, resistance is futile and assimilation is inevitable." Morrison looked around her bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens who had spent months learning to work together as a unified force. The Zalari had shared their advanced mining technology, allowing humans to extract rare minerals from asteroid fields that other species couldn't even approach. In return, human engineers had built weapons that could function in conditions no other galactic civilization could survive. All stations across the fleet. "This is Admiral Morrison," she announced, her voice carrying to over 1,000 ships spread throughout the sector. "We have unknown hostile forces approaching our space. You all know the drill by now. We protect those who can't protect themselves, no matter who's threatening them." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Human crews who had spent their entire lives dealing with Earth's hostile environment treated the approaching cosmic threat like just another day at the office. Ships that had been designed to survive solar flares and navigate through asteroid fields, prepared to face an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for eons. "Admiral, we're receiving tactical data from our Zalari allies," reported Lieutenant Colonel Dave Kim from the intelligence station. "The hive mind typically overwhelms their targets through sheer numbers, using organic ships that can repair themselves and adapt to enemy weapons. They've never encountered kinetic weaponry or crews that can survive in extreme combat conditions." Morrison smiled grimly as she watched her fleet prepare for battle. The hive mind had spent millions of years conquering civilizations that followed predictable patterns of galactic warfare. They expected energy weapons, defensive shields, and crews that needed perfect environmental conditions to function effectively. They had never encountered a species that had evolved on a world where survival meant adapting to constant danger, where every day brought new threats that would kill weaker life forms. Humans had learned to thrive in conditions that other species used as methods of execution. "Lieutenant Garcia, open the channel to the approaching hive mind fleet," Morrison ordered. "Let's introduce them to Earth's diplomatic philosophy." The transmission went out across interstellar space, carrying humanity's first message to an ancient enemy that had never known defeat. Morrison's words were simple, direct, and backed by the combined firepower of 1,000 ships, crewed by beings who considered black holes navigational hazards. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Terra Defense Force. You are approaching territory under Earth's protection. Turn around and leave immediately, or discover why evolution on a death world produces the galaxy's most effective warriors." The hive mind had conquered countless civilizations, but they had never faced an enemy that treated their ultimate nightmare scenarios as normal operating conditions. For the first time in millions of years, the galaxy's ancient predators were about to discover what it felt like to be prey. The final battle for galactic freedom was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the universe that, when you're born fighting for survival, everything else is just another day defending your friends.